Okay, welcome back everyone, Zaf here to a very juicy 2025 tier list for Jinwoo's weapons. That way, you know which weapons to summon for and use to ensure your damage is at the maximum output. You don't want to be wasting your precious summons on a weapon that's just not viable, so let's cover that. Very important. We have our rares and SR weapons in here, that way I don't waste your time, but first off, make sure, if you haven't yet, to support us on Netmarble's free supporter program. The link is down below. You want to press that juicy red button, that way you can get codes like the ones you see here. We have 2 available right now, so you don't want to miss out. Go to that link, and then after a day, check your My Page section, scroll down, receive benefits, that's where the codes will go. And as a reminder, you should join our Discord server as well to enter in all the giveaways here. We have hundreds and hundreds of dollars active right now to join in, so make sure you don't miss out on the fun. And Sekiro, a big congrats to you. From the first commenter on our last video, here's your shout out and enjoy that juicy Discord roll. So, let's jump into the tier list. As you can see, we have our SR weapons in here, and for the most part, besides game modes like Battlefield Time, you're not going to be using any of these weapons under the S tier. So A, B, C, and rares, you're just not going to be using them. I do have a pay-to-win account and a free-to-play account, and on that free-to-play, I'm just using SR weapons. The game gives you plenty of summons to make these SR weapons just not viable. That's my opinion. Let me know if you disagree. The tier list is based on my opinions alone, so make sure, if you have any comments, leave them down below. I can't wait to see what you have for me, but when it comes to our staple weapons, the SSR weapons you have to summon for, that would be Moonshadow and the Plum Sword. 100%, these are weapons every single player should have all the way to A5, otherwise, you're doing your account a huge disservice, you're losing out on so much damage. There is a reason why. These weapons here are our top tier weapons because they buff everything when it comes to our weapons, our skills, and in the case of Moonshadow, even our Hunter, so let me cover that. The Plum Sword is honestly so good, I have 2 copies of it as you can see here, but the reason why it's actually so viable is because of these effects here. As you can see, the A3 mark and the A1 mark gives us a critical hit, crit damage, and skill damage increase to our skills, weapon skills, etc., making it very important. The reason why that's so OP is because right now, when it comes to Jinwoo, his skills deal so much damage, we're talking thousands and thousands of percent. That's why buffing your skills is so viable, especially for the case of Sonic Stream, Magic Flying Slashes, the strongest skill in the game. It just overshadows any weapon out there. That's why those 2 weapons are just so viable. Moonshadow does the same thing, a 15% target damage taken increase and a dark damage taken increase of 15%, stacking up to 3 times, making it overpowered as can be, and at the A5 mark, even giving our team members a damage increase of 15%. Yeah, this is what I call one viable weapon. So that's why in our tier list they're ranked up top to reflect where they really stand in the game right now. But when it comes to our SSS weapons, we do have a few. We have the Demon King Daggers and the Divine Quarterstaff. These 2 weapons are so good, but we do have to mention 2 other weapons as well. We have the Grimoire and Phoenix Soul. All these weapons here are in a class of their own. Grimoire doesn't give us necessarily damage, but it does give us one of the rarest stats in the game, that being an elemental type damage increase at the A1 mark of 24%, making the weapon you do want to get at least at the A1 mark. That way, you maximize your damage on certain game modes such as the Boss Battle or even Power of Destruction. Super important. I would say Phoenix Soul does fall just a bit behind of the Divine Quarterstaff and the Demon King Daggers, but still, it is a very capable weapon, don't get me wrong. Though I would say even though these weapons are amazing, you can live without them. You can clear every single game mode of these 2 weapons up here. That's why they're staples, and that's why they're separated. Plum and Moonshadow are just too darn good, but when it comes to weapons that are good as well, I wouldn't sleep on certain weapons like the Gold-tailed Fox. It is unfortunately an event weapon, so if you don't have it now, you can't really get it, but seriously, it is one of the best buffing weapons in the game, only for, unfortunately, the light class. That's why it's on our SSS tier or our staple weapon list, just because you can only use it for light weapons. It is a must to pair with the Divine Quarterstaff. The devs killed it, giving us a free weapon you can actually use. Hopefully, it comes back that way. If you're watching this video a few months later, you can pull for it, using it against your light enemies. But I do want to remind you, if you have, let's say, Orfavorus all the way to A10, you don't really need a summon for Phoenix Soul. It is a very strong fire weapon, but still, Orfavorus, I use it on Proof of the Strong, level 20, no problem. It can clear any game mode. Phoenix Soul is just a good touch, giving us slightly more damage and just overall a more consistent damage output. And speaking of damage output, Demon King's Longsword. It used to be such a bad weapon, but right now, it is truly one of the best weapons we have. It gives us a shield, it gives us consistent DPS, and it's just a very easy weapon to use. If you're someone who has a skill issue, no problem. Pop this on, and any enemy that's weak to wind will honestly get melted away. But a weapon that just doesn't do a good job melting is Scatty. This weapon here, it's just not good at all. Honestly, one of the worst weapons we have right now. It's in our A tier, that being for the SR category. Just not good. I would rather use some of these SR weapons here than the Scatty. Do not summon for it. You'll be wasting your summons right now until it does get a buff, because right now, yeah, it's just not good. And I would say the same for Zeke's Fragment. It is not a weapon you need to summon for. It's good. Has good DPS, but seriously, yeah, you don't need it. We have enough dark weapons to fill in that slot. I'd rather have buffing weapons than a weapon that just tickles the enemies. It deals okay damage, alright? I don't want to say it's bad, but it's just not good enough. It does honestly need a slight buff to come into class of the Quarterstaff or Demon King Daggers, because right now, honestly speaking, it's just not the best weapon. I don't recommend summoning for it. But still, it's very, very strong, don't get me wrong. But a weapon that's more of a joke is the Merlin Surfboard. Yeah, this weapon, I guess it could have been good if it had a better kit to it. It's just not good, okay? In the A class it goes, you can use it. Same with the Spooky Pumpkin. I mean, they're okay weapons. I would say this one's actually a bit better, but still, event weapons, you're not going to use them. We've only had one event weapon so far, that being the Fox-tailed weapon here. This was a very, very viable weapon coming into class with Plum, giving us a phenomenal damage increase to our light weapons and skills. And let's see, speaking of light, we have two weapons here. We have the Demon Knight Spear and the Huntsman. These are both good. You have to remember, Demon Knight Spear is a free weapon, and Huntsman, although it's not mainly DPS, it does have breaks as well, making it have, above average utility. But still, I would say, in our S tier it goes, they're just not weapons you need. They're good, but I would say for most of you, there is a reason why Demon Knight Spear is better, is because we keep getting free copies, meaning eventually you can get this weapon all the way to A10, so that's why it is better in that regard. Though I would say Huntsman, based on our testing, is pretty much the same damage output as a Night Spear, but this is a AoE, it is slightly more fun to use and it's easier. The Huntsman does feel very clunky, so you don't need to summon for it, honestly speaking. We have enough light weapons right now to make it that the Huntsman is just not a weapon we need right now in 2025. Now we do have Vulcan's Rage, and if you remember, this is a weapon used for the first SLA championship win. I know, crazy. But arguably it's still not a good weapon. I would say it does have more use than Scatty, so I would put in front, these two weapons are just not weapons you're going to summon for. You're going to get them from 50-50 losses, where you just don't get the rate up summon you wanted. These are weapons that always show up. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. And we have the Skewer. Oh baby, my favorite weapon. It is juicy. Unfortunately, it's not juicy enough to go past the A tier, but it is a weapon that still has some use, buffing our team when it comes to maybe the Go Wasp battle, but it doesn't compare to the Grimoire. This weapon is so much better, but still, the Grilled Skewer does have a use, it has some utility, but just not a weapon we need. And Shadow Scythe, this weapon is fine. I'll be honest, the damage output is good. Don't get me wrong, it's just clunky for one reason. You don't get super armor, you don't get any shields when using the skill. Once this weapon does have any shields or super armor, that way you can't get knocked back. That's what super armor is. If you get hit, the animation for the weapon skill gets cancelled, which sucks. You need a skill to go through the full animation where you hold it down to get as much damage in as possible. Unfortunately, until that does get fixed, it's just not a good weapon in that regard. So, the damage output is great, we get 2 free copies, but right now, it's just not a good weapon. At least good enough to get past the SS tier. I would say even falling over here, just because you can't really use it, but it's still honestly good, don't get me wrong. So, that's it for our tier list. As you can see, we have our staples. I recommend every single person summon for these. We have our SSS weapons. These are mostly circumstantial. You need them for certain game modes, but you can get by without having them. Though with Grimoire, try to get it to A1 for that 24% elemental weakness bonus, oh baby. But a Demon King Daggers can be replaced with Longsword or Westwind. You don't necessarily have to have it. And the Quarterstaff. It can be substituted with the Demon Knight Spear or Huntsman, but it's just so much better when you get to A5. The damage output is bonkers. So, just letting you know which weapons are the best. That way, you don't waste your summons. Very important, you know which weapons to use, because even though weapon is classified as SSR, it does not mean it's necessarily good, where even some are outclassed by our SR weapons. So hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop your like, make sure to subscribe and support us. That way, you get a bunch of free codes sent directly to you, again, to your My Page section up top. Wait about a day, and it goes straight to receive benefits. But on that note, this is your Code King Zaf, signing out.